Hello guys and welcome to a new Bespoke Synth tutorial. Today I'm going to explain how to use a 64 pads controller like my Launchpad Mini to play melodies and chords. The first thing we need to do is to link our external controller to Bespoke, so we are going to use Midicontroller. We open the drop-down menu and we select the device name we are using, and we can open the layout mode. If you're not familiar with Bespoke or you have never linked an external controller to Bespoke, check out my introductory video where I explain all basic features of USB and MIDI connections in Bespoke. That said, we can now add the grid keyboard. And this is really interesting because thanks to Gridkeyboard, we can select different layouts and arrangements for our pad controller. As you can see here, Gridkeyboard has no colored bars on its top right corner. That's because this module wants to be connected, linked to a MIDI controller using this grid, patch grid in this light gray. So we can select the grid from our MIDI controller. You see here we have the grid icon, and besides that we have a dot. When we move the mouse on top of it, we can see grid, here grid as well, and grid as well. Now in my Launchpad Mini, we have a main grid, which is this one, 8 by 8 pads, and we have 8 buttons on top and 8 buttons here on the right side. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm not going to use the top line and this one, so I'm going to select grid and I link it to Gridkeyboard. Now, thanks to Gridkeyboard, we can define different parameters for our controller, but before that, I'm going to select the note output from Gridkeyboard and I'm going to send it to the FM Synth. Now I can play any pad on my Launchpad, and I'm going to hear a sound from my FM Synth. Now, to better visualize which notes are getting out of Gridkeyboard, I'm going to use a note displayer. So every time I press a pad, it will show the correspective note, its MIDI number, and the velocity, which here in my Launchpad Mini, it's always normalized between 0 and 127, so it's turned off and turned on. Gridkeyboard has two layout control. The first one is this drop-down menu arrangement, where we can select the layout of our controller, and this one, which is called layout, and we can select the keyboard style. So let's start from the first one, but before doing so, I want to select on this scale module, the chromatic scale. And as you can see, my keyboard now it's all colored. Every pad is colored. We have orange and yellow. Yellow it's used to indicate the fundamental note, the tonic. So here we have A, A1, A2, A2, and so on. To better visualize what's happening in the Launchpad layout, I'm going to switch off all my lights with arrangement set to full. Now, every time we press a key, we can move forward to play the scale. And if you take a closer look, when I press a specific value, a specific pad, on the row above, a red light will appear showing me the exact same note. In this example, D2, it's replicated on top here in the first pad. This is useful if you want to play a melody in different lines like Personally, I don't really like this layout because as a pianist, I want to have each note at its specific position. So I want to have C1 at that spot, C2, C3. I don't want to have copies of the same note at different positions. Moving on, we have arrangement 5. So in this arrangement, the first 3 columns are shut off, and we have the last 5 active. So what's cool about this layout is that we don't have copies. We don't have that red button, the red pad that indicates the same note that we are playing in the line before, in the row before, sorry. And this is much better. But my favorite is 6, because here we can see that the tonic is always on the left. So C, 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 C. And in between we have all notes. The arrangement 6, it's great to use in combination to the layout, the keyboard layout set to chromatic, because we can visualize each individual note. If we set a different scale, like Aeolian scale, only the specific keys, specific notes from that scale will be highlighted, like in this example. And this is super interesting. The other pads, which are turned off, can play as well. They are just not highlighted. Now let's set the arrangement to full once again. Here we can visualize that only the Aeolian notes are turned on. We can check out all layouts, so diatonic. Then we have chord individual. We can change the octave. This layout is made to play chords in a vertical way. Then we have chords. Each column can play a specific chord that can be transposed on each degree of the selected scale. In this example, we are playing using a scale of C Aeolian, and each chord here is built upon each grade of that scale. Here we have the chord with the 7th note. Here we have inversions on each grade, another inversion, and so on. If you want to visualize the chord name, you can use chorder display. Now we can move on and talk about the guitar layout. Now let me bring the chromatic scale once again. Here we can see that we have E, A, D, G, B, E. These 6 rows are like 6 strings of the guitar. So if you're familiar with guitar playing, you can use this layout to play a section of your guitar. Then we can move on, and septatonic. This layout with chromatic scale doesn't turn on the lights of pads, so we need to change scale. Using septatonic and arrangement full, we can visualize that all 7 degrees of the scale are displayed here in a line, and in the line above we have the tonic, which is shifted, so it's more on the right side of the pad. I think that this layout was designed in this way to better make chords. The pad, the controller, was divided into two sides, so we can put our left hand here on the left side, the right hand in the right side, and easily play chords. Without overlapping hands, and it's easier to visualize what you are doing. Then we have octave. We can change the bass octave of the pad. Then we have two switches. The first one is Latch. So with Latch turned on, I can press a key, that note will play, and if I want to stop it, I have to re-tap on it again. Same thing for the chord, so I can use chord Latch, and this is used when you want to make chords. Of course, you have to set the layout to chord, and it will work. This is pretty interesting because you don't have to know how to build chords. You simply need to select your desired scale, and Bespoke will generate all chords based on each degree of that scale. So that was all for today's tutorial. I really hope this second tutorial about chords and notes was useful for you. I remind you that you can check out my previous video where I show how to make chords using the Chorder module, and you don't have to use any external controller. And I also show how to make arpeggios in two pretty interesting ways. So check it out if you have not, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.